Most buyers obsess over interest rates right now. What's the question they should actually be asking?
The question they should be asking is not, what is the rate today, but how long do I actually need this rate to hold? You see, the rate lock decision isn't about predicting the market. It never was. It's about understanding your timeline and managing your downside if things don't go as planned. Most buyers treat this like a coin flip, but it's not.
Why is the rate lock conversation so stressful for buyers right now?
Because rates have been volatile and buyers are treating every movement like a signal. Rates tick up 0.25% and buyers panic. Rates drop 1/8 and buyers feel like they've missed something. The problem is that most buyers don't have a framework for this decision. They're watching emotionally to a financial question that actually has a pretty clear analytical answer, if you know which variables to look at. In the current environment, locking too early can cost you if rates drop during your transaction. Floating too long can cost if your rates rise or if your lock expires before you fund. You see, neither outcome is catastrophic if you plan for it. Both outcomes can be painful if you haven't. So the goal isn't to time the market. The goal is to make a decision you can defend regardless of which direction rates move.
What's the biggest misconception buyers have about rate locks?
The biggest misconception is that locking your rate early is always the safe move. It's not always. It depends on your situation. Locking early does give you certainty, but it also starts a clock. And most rate locks run for 30 to 45 days. You see, if your transaction is complex, multiple parties, estate sale, new construction, appraisal complications, you may find yourself needing an extension. And rate lock extensions cost money. And if rates have moved significantly in the time since you locked, your extension pricing may reflect the new market rate anyways. The other myth is that floating is reckless. Floating makes complete sense when you have a long transaction timeline, when market conditions suggest rates may ease slightly before you fund, or when your lender offers a float down option, meaning if rates drop after you lock, you can capture a portion of that improvement. Not all lenders offer this. We do. The decision isn't lock versus float, it's which choice fits your specific transaction timeline and your personal risk tolerance.
Walk us through how you actually think about this decision with a buyer.
When it comes to decisions for the buyer, there's really 4 variables. And if you know these 4 things, the lock or float question usually answers itself. First, how long is your transaction likely to take? If you're buying a straightforward resale with a clear title and no complications, 30 days is realistic. A new construction or an estate sale could run 60 to 90 days. You need to match your lock to your realistic timeline, not your optimistic one. Second, what's your pain threshold if rates move against you? A buyer who would lose sleep over a 1/4 point rate increase should lock immediately and buy peace of mind. A buyer who understands that a 1/4 point translates to roughly $45 a month on a $300,000 loan may feel comfortable floating for 2 weeks while the rate decision plays out. Third, does your lender offer a float down option? If so, floating becomes significantly less risky. You have a floor on the downside if rates spike, and you can still capture improvement if rates ease. Fourth, what's the rate environment doing right now? And do you have a specific reason to believe it will improve in the next 30 days? If the answer is yes and you can articulate why, floating may make sense. If the answer is I hope so, lock. 4 questions, honest answers, the decision becomes clear.
Give me a real example of how this played out, the right way and the wrong way.
Yeah, so 2 buyers, same month, similar purchase price. Both were under contract on properties around $550,000. Both came to me on the same day and asked about locking. The first buyer was in a straightforward resale. Good title, cooperative seller, no complications. She had a 30-day close scheduled. She locked immediately at the rate available that day. 2 weeks later, rates moved up meaningfully, but she was completely insulated, funded on time, no surprises. The second buyer was in a more complex situation. The property had a title issue that needed to be resolved, and we flagged early that the transaction could run 45 to 50 days. He decided to float, convinced rates were going to drop. Well, they didn't. So 2 weeks in, he locked at a worse rate than the buyer got locking that same day. A 30-day lock from that point wasn't enough to cover the 45 to 50-day close. So it was going to expire before funding, and we had to extend on top of a rate that was already worse than where he started. Not catastrophic, but he paid more than he needed to, and he spent weeks anxious about something that was entirely within his control. Same starting point, different decisions. One of them slept fine, the other one texted me on weekends.
What do most buyers not know about rate locks that they should?
There's a few things that buyers don't know about rate locks that they should. A few things that rarely come up in conversations, but they do matter. You see, rate locks are tied to a specific property. If you lock and then the deal falls through, the appraisal issue, inspection, or a title problem, the lock does not transfer to your next purchase. You see, you start fresh at whatever rate is available when you go under contract on the next property. Extensions have a cost, but they're not always the buyer's only option. If the delay is caused by something on the lender's side rather than the buyer or the seller's, there's sometimes room to negotiate the extension fee, and it's worth asking. And float-down options have specific trigger thresholds. You see, it's not automatic. Rates have to move by a certain amount before the float-down kicks in, and there's usually a window during which you have to exercise it. Read the terms before you assume you have downside protection. None of these are deal breakers. They're just things you need to know before you're in the middle of a decision.
What's the most costly mistake buyers make with rate locks?
Yeah, so the most costly mistake is making the decision based on a prediction instead of a plan. I've had buyers float their rate because they were certain, absolutely certain that rates were going to drop in the next 2 weeks. Sometimes they're right, but more often they're wrong. And the ones who are wrong end up either paying more or extending a lock at an unfavorable price. The better question isn't where a rate's going, because honestly, no one actually knows for sure. The better question is, if rates move against me, what does that cost me specifically, and can I live with it? If the answer is yes, it's okay to float. If the answer is no, go ahead and lock. It's a risk management decision, not a market prediction. You see, the buyers who handle this best are the ones who take the emotion out of it entirely and make it a decision they can stick with regardless of what happens next.
For a buyer who's currently under contract and hasn't locked yet, what do they do right now?
Well, the first thing they should do is call your lender today and ask for the current rate, the cost for a 30-day lock, a 45-day lock, and whether there's a float-down option available. You need these 4 numbers to make this decision. If your lender can't answer all 4 in 5 minutes, that's information too. Second, be honest with your agent about the realistic timeline, not the optimistic timeline, the realistic one. If there's any chance this transaction runs long, price that into your lock decision now. And third, once you lock, leave it alone. Don't watch rates daily. The decision's made, and the only thing watching rates accomplish is anxiety. You lock for a reason. Trust the process.
And if someone wants to talk through their specific situation with you, where do they go?
Well, we'd be happy to talk to them. So you can schedule a call at teamaronheim.com. You can tell me where you are in the process, whether you're under contract, still shopping, or just starting to think about it. And I'll tell you exactly how I'd approach the lock decision, given your specific timeline and loan structure. Or you can text me at 720-248-6892. The lock decision takes about 10 minutes to think through clearly. Most buyers spend weeks anxious about it. Let's just do it in 10 minutes.